Captain America Brave New World has arrived, and with it are a whole bunch of details you may or may not have missed. First up, let's dish on the cameos. While none of them were likely to go over the heads of dedicated Marvel fans, you'd be forgiven for not recognizing one. Liv Tyler, specifically, hasn't been seen since her role as Betty Ross in The Incredible Hulk back in 2008. Here she initially only makes a voice cameo, talking to her father, President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, on the phone, in which she agrees to take a walk with him next time they get the chance. That chance doesn't come to be, however, as the leader's plan to humiliate Ross succeeds, and the president is turned into the Red Hulk. Luckily for Ross's character arc, Tyler's Betty Ross shows up at the raft where he's imprisoned at the end of the film. It's a very brief role, but one worth mentioning. Another brief appearance comes from Sebastian Stan, who appears as Bucky Barnes, while Joaquin Torres is in surgery following his unfortunate close proximity to an exploding missile. Barnes has some inspiring words for Sam Wilson, who has begun to feel more than a little vulnerable after failing to capture Tim Blake Nelson's Samuel Stearns and just barely foiling his plan to humiliate Ross with the Celestial Island incident. The cameo by Bucky wasn't necessarily a shock. After all, he was the titular Winter Soldier in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But it did raise some questions about what Bucky's been up to. Specifically, why is he campaigning for Congress just a few months after a major election? Maybe these things are just handled differently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it's a bit strange. And that's not even considering the fact that he's a century-old brainwashed Soviet assassin with a metal arm. Then there's the Easter eggs and references. There's the Mr. Blue link mentioned above, as well as callbacks to Ross's heart problems, as previously explored in Captain America Civil War and Black Widow. The president being portrayed by Harrison Ford feels like a clear reference to the action film Air Force One, in which he also plays the president. There are also various references to past MCU projects, including the Wakandans helping Sam in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Ant-Man, in which Sam Wilson briefly battles the pint-sized hero. In addition to various references to 2008's Incredible Hulk, we also get a clear allusion to Sam's imprisonment aboard the raft in Civil War. In that film, Ross was on the other side of the prison bars, and in Brave New World, he finds himself imprisoned by the end. For comic book fans, perhaps the most notable reference is Dennis Dunphy, who in the comics is the hero Demolition Man, also known as D-Man. Based on his fate in Brave New World, that particular hero won't be showing up in full costume anytime soon.
That's what I thought.
Who knows though? Well, we do get a reference from Samuel Stearns about other worlds, obviously alluding to the other realities of the multiverse. Perhaps we'll see actor William Mark McCullough return to the role as a variant of his deceased character. We also get two classic, albeit minor, villains, Copperhead and Sidewinder, both of whom are members of the Serpent Society, known simply as Serpent in the film version. Sidewinder is played by Giancarlo Esposito, while Copperhead is played by Johannes Hauker Johannesson. Shira Haas plays Ruth Bat Seraph, who in the comics is the Israeli mutant Sabra. Her outfit features blue highlights, a clear reference to her comic book appearance. Then there's Red Hulk, which would be nearly impossible to miss unless you skip the final act of the film.
Since when were they red?
However, his intense body temperature is only alluded to, which is pulled from the comics. Next up, we have to talk about the plot holes in Brave New World, because they're substantial, but also easy to miss.
Damn. Nobody saw that.
The most notable has to be how this film relates to Marvel's Secret Invasion. While that show didn't receive much critical acclaim, such an issue didn't stop Kevin Feige and his team from utilizing plot elements from their other relative failures, Eternals and The Incredible Hulk. Secret Invasion should arguably relate even more to Brave New World's plot. That show ended with the President, played by Dermot Mulroney, condemning all alien life on Earth and propagating a public phobia of hidden Skrulls. None of this is mentioned in the latest film, nor do we get any reference to S.H.I.E.L.D., Saber, or Nick Fury. All of which seems a little weird, considering that President Ross is so focused on togetherness as part of his campaign. For what it's worth, there are no aliens present in this Captain America sequel, at least none that we know of. Either way, it's a strange omission, especially considering it could have been covered in any of the film's ample news coverage of events. There are also a lot of issues surrounding the leader, and we're not sure whether these were inherent in the script or a product of reshoots complicating things. Either way, we're left with questions. For example, example, how is he traveling so easily? He doesn't seem to be doing too much to disguise himself, but he manages to make it to the doorstep of a Navy admiral, a military training site, and even sneaks up on Sam Wilson. And it's only that final moment that results in his arrest. The biggest head-scratcher moment comes from that military training site visit where he murders Sam Wilson's contact Dennis Dunphy out in the open with zero repercussions. These aren't necessarily plot holes. After all, Stearns is shown as a top-tier genius who accounts for all probability, but it's still a little hard to swallow his ease of travel. That said, there is another plot hole, and it relates directly to Stearns' aforementioned genius. For someone so in tune with probability, he sure does leave a lot up to chance. And that includes allowing Sam Wilson to conduct the investigation that leads to his eventual arrest. While his end goal of humiliating Ross does eventually come to fruition, that doesn't stop the fact that it doesn't go according to plan, and that's predominantly because he doesn't kill Captain America when given the opportunity. We see with the killing of Dennis Dunphy that he has no issue with getting his hands dirty, and he has the ability to murder someone with the flick of a dial, so why leave Captain America to a handful of goons with taser sticks? It brings into question just how much of a genius Stearns really is. And actually, while we're on the subject, why not brainwash President Ross? We know he should have all that he needs in order to do so. And with Ross, the commander-in-chief, it would only take 1 or 2 executive orders or a less sane approach to the Celestial Island dispute in order to torpedo any chance at Ross ever being taken seriously again. Obviously, the answer is that we then wouldn't have a plot, but it seems like the writers could have taken a bit more care in explaining the leader's plan and why it has to be so convoluted. The best explanation we can come up with is that he likes to play games with people, hence the song Mr. Blue being used to trigger his brainwashed victim. As you may recall, that was his nickname while trading correspondence with Bruce Banner back in The Incredible Hulk. Speaking of Bruce, where exactly is he during all of this commotion? Presumably we'll get some sort of answer in a future Marvel movie, but at the moment it's kind of wild to imagine him not coming out of the shadows to aid Sam in some way in dealing with his Ross problem. The two of them are presumably still friends after serving together as Avengers, and so we have to assume that the only reason for his absence is how quickly events transpire and the secrecy of Stearns' plan. But then, Sam would have gone to Banner upon realizing that the plot tied in so directly to the events in Harlem, as seen in The Incredible Hulk. So yeah, it's not a glaring plot hole, but it's pretty wild to not see Banner in such a direct sequel to his one MCU solo adventure. So, what other Easter eggs did you spot? Anything we missed? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for watching Screen Rant.